That was the stealth fighter.
The shaft, huh?
Yeah. So, by the way, we're replacing your brand new boom operator with a 20-year veteran. So in the 50s, like I said, we really needed to go look and see where the Russians were putting their missiles and their airplanes. And we would use this U-2 that was built by Kelly Johnson's Skunk Works down there in Palmdale to overfly. And of course, a lot of you know where I'm going with that. U-2s would be vulnerable to better and better defenses. But before I get to the story of Francis Gary Powers, when Kelly was asked, how did you come up with the idea for this high altitude U-2? I mean, it's very high altitude, about 50,000, so the pilot had to wear a spacesuit. Flew very slow, but theoretically unreachable at that altitude. Well, he said, I just took an F-104 and highly modified it. So you look at that F-104 and look at that U-2 and see if you can imagine the modifications. I'd say, yeah, pretty highly modified.
Made into a glider.
Yeah. They would get a lot of old C-130 pilots to fly these because they were used to having the big wings out there. So, anybody recognize this photo?
Yeah, the trial of Powers.
Yeah, the trial of Francis Gary Powers, the fellow who got shot down in the U-2, caused a lot of people a lot of aggravation because he got shot down, but that is what brought about this idea that maybe we need something that's not only high, but fast. And the SR-71, really the A-12 at that time, was already in work, and that's what they started putting their bets behind. Going so fast that nothing will ever be able to shoot you down, and nothing ever could. We had a mission out in the Pacific where afterwards the SR crew came by the dorms and were talking with the tanker pilots, the bachelor officer quarters, and they said, we thought you guys might be interested in this, and they unrolled this piece of paper and they said, see, this is where they fired the missiles at us, and this is where we were, and then you know, the missiles they fired just could not go fast enough to catch up with them by the time they fired them. Even if they could fire them even quicker, they couldn't keep up with something going the speed of a bullet. In fact, these pilots didn't even know they'd been shot at till they got down, landed, and looked at some of the intel that they got from that mission.
So they were taking pictures?
Yeah, so the SR-71 has a reconnaissance bay where there's a lot of different things that could be loaded down in there. Back in those days, you had to actually land, pull it all out, and get it processed. Some of it was film, other was electronics. There's all sorts of things that are, some of it's probably still secret. In the second reincarnation of the SR-71, which I'll talk about a little bit later, they made it real time, so they could telemetry their intel back without having to land.
They also have a cockpit.
So this is the, you see how this second cockpit is raised? This is the model they used to teach the new pilots. They would put an instructor pilot here and the new pilot here, and they give them a few lessons, and then they'd say, okay, you're ready to go.
We have one of those in
Back,
back.
we got one back.
I'll show you a later picture of SR-71 where this cockpit looks different, and in that case, the person sitting there is an electronic warfare officer, a recon officer who's in charge of all of that equipment in the bay and is making sure they're flying to the right place and getting the right intel